Dr. Sam, please do correct me when you come on. He's been principal investigator of the project from 2005 to present. He's also an anthropology professor and director of Center of Anthropology at American University, founder of nonprofit, non-governmental archaeological park Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun Foundation in Sarajevo, registered for archaeological digging, scientific research, and promotion of archaeological tourism for 2005 to present. He's the author of 18 books on pyramids around the world and ancient civilizations, translated into 17 languages. He's elected first honorable citizen of the town of Visoko, Man of the Year in Bosnia in 2007, and received plaque for outstanding achievement from Zenica cantonal government. And we've had Dr. Sam on a few times now. We did a presentation with him on the Bosnian Pyramid complex, and the amount of information, really groundbreaking, profound information that is kind of like paradigm shifting that is coming out of the Bosnian Pyramid complex is very, very interesting. Especially when it comes to the Bosnian Pyramid Complex tunnel. So we're gonna go ahead and bring him on now and get into this. There we go. Dr. Sam, are you there?
Hello, guys.
Hey, brother. How are you?
Hello.
I'm doing fine. Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for being here.
It's still morning in your parts of the world, and it's evening here in Bosnia. So I'm in Bosnia right now in Southern Europe.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here, brother. Really appreciate you. It's all yours.
You know, in the last couple of centuries, we have been programmed to think about the pyramids in the terms of Egypt, desert, pharaohs, tombs, or Mexico, Aztecs, places to sacrifice the enemies. Now, let's forget that for a moment. We know now that pyramids have been built on all 6 continents. In Australia, we have Gympie Pyramid, eastern coast. In Asia, 250 pyramids in the central Chinese province of Shanxi. 20 bigger ones, older than 12,500 years, and 230 smaller, inferior pyramids, built 2,300 years back until 1,000 before the present. In Cambodia, except of the beautiful pyramid temples at Angkor Wat, we have one true pyramid. It's called Koh Ker Pyramid in the northern part of the country. Gunung Padang, the Hill of Light, is a pyramid discovered by our friend Dr. Danny Hillman in western part of the Java. It's a big island in Indonesia. This pyramid has been dated to 24,000 years back. The island of Mauritius, between Africa and India, about 2,000 miles from the African continent, has 7 stepped pyramids. 224 Nubian pyramids in northern Sudan, 155 Egyptian pyramids, not 118 as Wikipedia, the non-scientific site, is claiming, but 155. Then we have 104 pyramids on Canary Islands, more than 300 of them in Peru. Beautiful pyramid complex of Acapena in Bolivia. Central American countries of Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Belize are the home to more than 100,000 Mayan pyramids. On American soil, in southwestern corner of the state of Illinois, today we have 120 pyramids. They call them Cahokia mounds. They are not mounds, but structures covered by soil and grass. And finally, in Europe, 3 Palencia pyramids, more than 40 pyramids on the island of Sicily in Italy. We have pyramid on Sardinia. We have 16 pyramids in Greece. And finally, we have Bosnian pyramids. So as we can see, the world of the past was the world of pyramids. The second thing that teaches us wrong is that pyramids were built, all of them, in the last 5,000 years. Again, wrong. Chinese, 12,500. How do we know that? In the oldest Buddhist temples, in their very old books, there are claims that those pyramids 5,000 years back were very, very old. In 1967, the Chinese archaeologist who was investigating those structures at a conference in Japan claimed that he found some type of clay tablets with hieroglyphic writings. He deciphered them partially, and the age of those pyramids were 12,500 years. He also claimed that those pyramids were built by beings who had accident in space. Their spaceship landed on this planet. They could not repair it, and they had to remain on Earth. And they continued tradition of building pyramids. The Egyptian pyramids, they are telling us, they were built during the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th dynasty, and then 12th and 19th. The 3rd, they are saying the step pyramid in Saqqara, was built by the pharaoh Djoser. No scientific argumentation for that. And then they are saying Sneferu built not 1, but 3 huge pyramids. A red pyramid, bent pyramid, and the one in Meidum. Not a single proof for that. And they are going on, they're saying the 4th dynasty rulers, the pharaoh Cheops or Hufu, Khafre or Khephren, and Myceren or Mykerinos, they built 3 most magnificent pyramids at the Giza plateau. In those pyramids, no mummies, no royal furniture, no organic materials, no tools, not a single proof who, when, how, and why. In science, we need scientific argument, not bedtime stories. Well, it seems that 28 largest, biggest, and most superior pyramids in Egypt, that are at the same time the oldest pyramids, were built much before the end of the last ice age. How do we know that? When El Mamnun, 1,200 years back, opened violently the Great Pyramid of Egypt, he discovered seashells and salt at the lower parts of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. What does that mean? It means that the pyramid was covered in seawater. When was the last time when Giza Plateau was flooded? 12,000 years back, when the ice all around the world melted. So, what is the precise date of the Egyptian pyramids? Hard to say. But when we think in terms of who, the most important Egyptian artifact and written document is the Turin King List, which is located in Egyptian Museum in Turin. 16 feet long papyrus is showing 3 faces of Egyptian rulers. The third, the last face, are the sons of gods. And they ruled Egypt from 5,100 years back with the king Menem, who united Lower and Upper Egypt. And then we have dynasty number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Before this phase, there was a second phase with the demigods or semi-gods. They would rule Egypt 200 or 300 years each. And before this phase was the phase number 1. During the first phase, the Egyptian rulers would rule the country for 1,000 years in average each. When did they arrive to Egypt? It was 42,500 years back. The kingdom ascended from the sky to our planet. Why these days are so important? What they teach us in schools is that everything started, as far as the advanced civilizations, 7,000 years back. And that's what you can read at Encyclopedia Britannica. This is not the only nonsense in this major scientific work. Just 40 years back, they were saying Sumerians are just 5,000 years old. Now they are moving to 7,000. And they are, even with that, they are wrong. Because we know that, for example, in the Palestinian territory today, Jericho, which was the oldest town in Neolithic times, 11,000 years old. We are much older than this date proposed by the British elites. Everything that's older than Neolithic or Mesolithic times, meaning more than 12,000 years back, is really forbidden in cultural establishment to mention. Today we know that not only that Egyptian major pyramids were older than that, but also places like Göbekli Tepe in eastern Turkey, the megalithic sites, huge. When I talked to late Dr. Klaus Schmidt 7 years back, he told me probably the age was between 15 and 18,000 years. They did 4 radiocarbon dating, and they show the age of 10,000 BC. You go to Wikipedia and similar sites, you will read that Göbekli Tepe is 11,600 years old. Wrong. 10,000 BC means 12,000 years. And the radiocarbon dating is not the precise calendar age. You need to add about 14%, which is 13,600, meaning Paleolithic times. Paleolithic, it means the older Stone Age. Now we have Machu Picchu in eastern Peru. All the scientific literature is saying that this site was a royal retreat for Incas. Again, wrong. There are 4 distinctive civilizations there. The first one, 55,000, 12,000, 5,000, and finally, 800 years, an Inca civilization. Many sites around the world, which are older than this magic line of 12,000 years. Why is that important? They are telling us that human history is evolutionary, evolution. 10, 20, 30,000 years back, archaeologists and historians think that was an era of Stone Age man, primitive society. Well, the history of humanity is actually the history of cycles. In the last 100,000 years, we have had at least 5 cycles of humanity. The last one was stopped 11,700 years back with the end of the last ice age. Before that, 18,500. Before that, 34,000 years. Huge solar flames basically burned the surface of the planet. Before that, 55,000, and before that, 75,000 years, and the eruption of great volcano in Indonesia. So every time those global catastrophes hit the planet, the humanity was almost wiped off the planet. 99%, or even a little bit more, of humans were gone forever. Those who went on hiding under the ground in the tunnels or natural caves on the top of the mountains, they would survive. When they would get out, they would realize that their civilization was destroyed. The knowledge discontinued. So they would need to start from the beginning. So now we see, when it comes to the world of pyramids, that some of the pyramids do belong to different time periods. I mentioned Gunung Padang in Indonesia, 24,000 years old. Teotihuacan pyramids in Mexico. Officially, they are saying 2,150 years, that the city was built over the period of 250 years. Wrong. You go there, it's a little bit north to Mexico City. You can see that the city was built basically almost overnight, in a matter of a couple of 3-4 years. So all around the world, we can see proof that for some reason, the pyramid builders built those very intriguing structures. Why? 16 years back, when I came to little Bosnian town of Visoko in central Bosnia, the reason was not pyramid, but to visit the local museum. What caught my attention was this, everybody called it hill, because it was covered by soil and vegetation. And the forest was planted back in 1960s and 1970s. The same thing like in China. 1967, they started planting the trees. So I was looking at this hill, 4 sides, 4 triangular faces, obvious corners, the same slope from bottom to the top. So I took a compass and it showed me that those sides perfectly aligned with the cardinal points, east, west, north, south. Mother Nature does not make hills with 4 triangular faces and perfect orientation. At that time, I climbed the top of that pyramid hill. I could notice another one in the valley just across, the big one with the 4 sides, with the plateau on the top and perfect orientation. So in my head, I already knew that we had at least 2 artificial structures covered by soil, and I named them the Bosnian Pyramids of the Sun and the Moon. Back in 2005, that was a one-man show. I started preliminary geological core drilling, lab analysis, archaeological trenches. Everything I did, the experts called anomalies, meaning it was not of natural geological origin. By the end of 2005, I wrote my first book about the discovery of the Bosnian pyramids, published and announced at the press conference that those pyramids were discovered in the heart of Bosnia. The next year, 2006, I established non-profit, non-government Foundation for the Archaeological Digging and Scientific Research, and since then, it has become the most active archaeological site in the world. Every year, hundreds of volunteers from all over the world are coming to Bosnia, and they are giving the opportunity to dig with us, to uncover concrete, rectangular, and square blocks, to discover prehistorical tunnels, to discover artifacts, organic materials. These are our conclusions. There is a pyramid complex of at least 6 pyramids, which we named the Pyramids of the Sun, Moon, Dragon, Temple of Mother Earth, Pyramid of Love, and the 6th pyramid. 3 major pyramids, Sun, Moon, Dragon, when we connect their tops, are giving us distance of 2,180 meters, about 1.4 miles, between the tops. So they form perfect equilateral triangle. As we know, equilateral triangle is part of the sacred geometry. You have elements of sacred geometry. You have movements of the energy. The other 3, Sun, Moon, and the 6th pyramid, they form another equilateral triangle. And then, if we use the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun as the beginning of the golden section spiral, on the line of the spiral we have the Pyramid of Love and 2 more pyramid hills, meaning we have the golden section here applied. And the golden section, or 1.618, is also element of the sacred geometry. The ancients were always using sacred geometry when building pyramids and some megalithic sites. For example, the Great Pyramid of Egypt has the length at the base of 231 meters. 2 lengths, 462, divided by height of 146.6, the result is 3.14, which is number pi. 2 major and most important numbers, number pi, 3.14, and number phi, or golden section, 1.618. When we started the excavation process, removing about 4 or 5 feet of soil, we started discovering rectangular and square blocks. We took samples, sent them to 7 institutes for constructions, and we got the results back. It was an artificial concrete material. Some people call them geopolymer concrete, like Professor Davidovitz of Geopolymer Institute of France, or synthetic concrete. So we realized that this concrete was of excellent quality. The quality is based on 2 elements. The first one is hardness. The harder the concrete, the more durable. Our concretes in 21st century are on the scale from 10 megapascals to 60 megapascals. The concrete from the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun from 73 to 155 megapascals. Harder than anything that we can make today. The second element, the water absorption. If water can get inside the concrete during the winter time, it freezes and the ice has the tendency to expand and concrete breaks. So we allow up to 3% of the absorption. In the Bosnian pyramids, it's only 1%, meaning it is superior. So obviously somebody had better technology than what we make today. In order to build the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the builders needed 6 million tons of the material. In the case of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, it is more than 20 million tons of material. And indeed, the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun is the largest pyramid ever built. This 4-sided structure is more than 360 meters, more than 1,100 feet in height. The Bosnian Pyramid of the Moon, 190 meters, more than 600 feet. So both of them higher than the Great Pyramid of Egypt. The next step, Once I discovered those first couple of pyramids, I knew that we had to discover underground tunnels. In most cases, people don't know about it, but under every major Egyptian pyramid, there are underground tunnels. Under pyramids in China, in Shanxi province, there are tunnels. Under Teotihuacan pyramids in Mexico, the sun, the moon, Quetzalcoatl, there are underground tunnels. Under Palenque, Mayan pyramids, there is a huge network of tunnels. Peruvian pyramids, the same thing. So in my first book, before I discovered those tunnels in Bosnia, I said that we were going to discover them. By now, from 2005 till 2021, we've discovered 6 different entrances to those underground tunnels. The first one are so-called Ravne tunnels. Ravne meaning flat in Bosnia. So Ravne tunnels we have cleared and secured by the wooden support, safety support, 2,300 meters of those tunnels. So it's about 1.5 miles of prehistorical tunnels with a lot of huge ceramic blocks artificially made. We've discovered some artifacts there also. Then we discovered 5 more tunnels. No need to talk about all of them. But the point is, the whole valley of the pyramids in Bosnia has those tunnels under the ground, and they run for tens of miles. Our major conclusion about the Bosnian pyramids was the pyramids were not built as the resting place, as tombs for the rulers, but they had more profound role as the energy amplifiers or energy machines, shortly. How do we know that? The pyramids amplify existing natural energy sources. Under the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, we have iron plate. Iron generates electromagnetic field. The pyramid amplifies it. How do we know that? Because we have measured it at the base and at the top. At the top, the energy is 50 times stronger. If you can measure something, then you can scientifically prove that. The second source of energy, under the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, there is an energy flow. Water moves, it releases the negative ions, which are very beneficial to human health and the atmosphere. The pyramid amplifies the concentration of negative ions. And again, we've been measuring that using special instrument called air ion counter. The third, below the pyramid, this time a little bit deeper, there is another one, water flow. Between the two, we have electricity formed. And through the very top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, we can measure energy beam, which is electrical in nature, the frequency of 28 kilohertz, it's continuous, it is focused. It starts with the radius of 13 feet, then they go to about 70 feet, coming back to 1370, 1370. It's like ellipsoid. In science, this phenomenon is called Tesla's scalar waves. So we are the first one in the world doing some pioneering work, proving that pyramids were creating scalar waves. Nikola Tesla, 122 years ago, was experimenting with these subtle, soft energy forms. In the last 50 years, mostly the Russian physicists have been investigating this phenomenon. Why is it important? Because the scalar waves can transport, can move the energy and information much quicker than the speed of light. So our first conclusion about the pyramid energy was that they were used as the communication devices. And then we were checking where this energy is aiming to. In the morning, the energy beam was not at 90 degrees to the sky, but it was moved a little bit to the east. And as we know, the sun rises at the east. At the noontime, south. Afternoon, southwest. Evening, west. So this energy beam follows the path of the sun. What does that mean? Here we can speculate. It seems that this energy from the pyramid is communicating with our major star, which is our sun. And maybe through the sun, like with the gate, it communicates with other solar systems, with other star constellations, and maybe with other galaxies. If this is the case, and the communication goes both ways, it seems that we have something that we can call the cosmic internet. What is the second potential purpose of the pyramid energy? Now, we can see that pyramid really not only amplifies the planetary energies, but creates very specific frequencies, and they are all measurable. I mentioned electromagnetism, I mentioned electrical field, but also we are finding a lot of quartz crystal during the archaeological excavation on the Sun Pyramid and in the tunnels. The quartz crystal has the ability to transfer one form of the energy, electromagnetic field for example, through the piezoelectrical effect to another one, the ultrasound. And indeed, we can measure the frequency of 28 kilohertz of ultrasound on the pyramid and in the tunnels. Why is this particular frequency important? Because this is the frequency of the levitation. When you enter the tunnels, you feel light, levitation frequency. And it seems that this frequency has something to do with the manipulation of huge quantities of material needed to build this complex. So you enter the tunnels and you breathe very well. As a matter of fact, deeper you go in, you breathe better and better. Not very logical, but nothing in Bosnia is logical. People with the respiratory problems, for example, people with the asthma, they breathe so well that when they get out, they don't need air pumps for weeks or even for several months. People with high blood pressure, let's say 180 over 120, after the tunnels, it gets back to the normal, 120 over 80. People with the high glucose in the blood, high sugar in the blood, they experience that they drop 5 or 6 points during their visit to the tunnels. People with the pains, very often the pains are gone. People with some very serious health problems, they can see literally revolutionary improvement of their health. So what is happening in those tunnels? Now, we always say, we are not in the healing business, we don't give medical guarantees, but we do measure. We use scientific instrument, we analyze. And these are our findings. There is a combination of 9 different elements in those tunnels that make them the safest, the most secure, and the healthiest place on the planet. 5 first elements is the absence of all bad radiations. The first one, the cosmic radiation. If we accept the fact that our planet is a sphere, not the flat, if it is sphere, then a lot of cosmic radiations are coming our way. And some of them are very damaging to our body. Well, you go to those tunnels, 120 feet below the ground, no bad cosmic radiations. The second one, underground natural radioactivity. Well, sometimes we are not even aware. We walk the streets and this radioactivity is coming and hurting our body, attacking it. So our body cells are fighting all day long with the cosmic radiations, with the radioactivity, with the geopathogen radiations from underground, 24 hours a day, every day. You go to the tunnels, no cosmic radiations, no radioactivity, because we measure it using the Geiger instruments. No geopathogenic, no signal for cell phones. And as we know, when we talk to 4G, 5G, we put the phone on our ear, it burns our brain cells. And the fifth radiation is Wi-Fi. No Wi-Fi signal in those tunnels. So everything that's been attacking us daily, 24 hours a day, is absent in the tunnels. For the first time in our life, our body cells can start doing their job. And their job is to fix the problems in our body, to start the regeneration process. The last four elements, number 6, is the best frequency of the electromagnetic field, which is 28 kilohertz. Number 7, the best frequency in ultrasound, the levitation frequency of also 28 kilohertz. Number 8, very low, extremely low frequency, ELF frequency of 7.83 hertz. In science, it is called the Schumann resonance. Everything resonates in the nature. Nikola Tesla, the brilliant mind from these areas, claimed that the planet resonates at about 8 hertz. Von Schumann, the Austrian, 50 years back, he measured it was 7.83. Today, the frequency which surrounds us is 10, 12, 15 hertz. Why? Because of the EM smog, of a lot of bad electromagnetic fields that we create. For example, TVs, laptops, computers, cell phones, microwaves, this power system that we have. This bad electromagnetic field, it has to go somewhere. Where does it go? It goes to the ionosphere around our planet. And it presents a pressure to our mother planet. And she, our mother planet, she starts resonating higher, 10 hertz, 12 or 15 or 18 hertz. And this low frequency is actually very bad to us. Our brain, 7.83, in the downtown New York or LA or Frankfurt or Moscow, 15 or 18. So this tension creates stress to our body and to our brain. And imagine, on Bosnian pyramids, 7.83, in the Bosnian pyramid tunnels, 7.83. So we go back to the balance. In the last 10, 11 years, we have had thousands of volunteers. After the work, let's say clearing the tunnels, after the work, they go to meditate to the tunnels. And then I ask them, and those are people from Peru, New Zealand, US, Germany. I ask them, how do you feel here? They said, we feel like we are at home. And really, they are at home because they are back to our original frequencies. So another conclusion was that the pyramid energy really stabilizes the earth and all our resonance fields. So when you have those 8 elements and you add one more, the 9th element, which are the negative ions, you are getting excellent area for the regeneration process. What are the negative ions? It's some extra electrons in atoms or molecules. Negative ions are very good for the atmosphere because they connect to the dust, it becomes heavy, they go down to the floor. They connect to the pollen. Remember those allergies in the spring or summertime, and they clear the atmosphere from pollen. Then they raise the level of oxygen in our body, so we are more productive. And finally, and probably the most important thing is, they neutralize, they kill all the microbes. And microbes are viruses, bacteria, and fungi. In the last 16 months, during this corona process, of course, everybody learned about the viruses. Now we think that the viruses, if they exist, they look like two elements. They have those little balls, the core, which is basically DNA or RNA, and they have those little sticks, the protein field. Now, this protein is made from the amino acids, from carbon, from hydrogen, and hydrogen is a binder there. When you have negative ions, they come together with the positive ions. They, jump on those sticks, and it's a very reactive combination, negative and positive ions. They are in a chemical formula is OH, O oxygen, H hydrogen. So OH jumping there and pulling one atom of hydrogen. And so you're getting OHH or H2O. H2O, of course, it is water. Or in our case, the smaller microelements, it's basically humidity. So once they pull this atom of hydrogen, without the binding material, those sticks, basically they disappear. So you have this little ball which goes down to the ground, and the virus is neutralized. So more negative ions, less viruses and other microbes. In our homes, our apartments, concentration of negative ions is very low, about 20 to 50 per cubic centimeter. We go outside to the downtowns, 150. How do we know that? Because we measure it. You go to the mountains in the forests, pine tree forests, 750 to 1,000 negative ions per cubic centimeter. You go to the Bosnian Pyramid tunnels, it's between 20,000 and 60,000, meaning it's 50 times higher concentration than on the top of the mountains. It's 50 times healthier. So the moment you enter those tunnels, we have those 9 elements, and they are all measurable, that create perfect environment to protect what is the most precious to us. And that would be our health. So our conclusion, the second potential purpose of the pyramid energy is the regeneration process, and if we get lucky, the rejuvenation process. Probably at the time when the pyramids were built, when our mother planet was much healthier, when planetary energies were much stronger, when you amplify them, probably you could even do the rejuvenation process on this planet. The potential purpose of the energy number 3. In some of those tunnels that we discover, there are some tunnels with the water, and we compare that water to our city water. As we know, our city water or bottled water, both. They don't have viruses and bacteria. Why? Because they've been treated with the chlorine, and the chlorine is a poison. There are traces of fluorides, poison. There are traces of heavy metals, poisons. or there are traces of plastics, poisons. So what we drink is energetically dead water. Now look at the water in the pyramid tunnels. It is not treated, but no viruses, no bacteria, because every month we send samples to be analyzed to the government institutions. The next thing, the pH. The pH factor is very important. As we know, the scale from 0 to 14. 7 is neutral. So people try to keep our city water around 7. Usually it's about 6, 6.5. It's a little bit on acid side. And for example, the soda drinks, we don't need to mention Coke or Pepsi or Schweppes or tonic and so on. It's about 2.7. It's ideal for the cancer cells. So, but our blood is not 7. Our blood is 7.45. The water from the pyramid tunnels is 7.45. Ideal to our body. And then we sent samples to late Dr. Masaru Emoto from Japan, 8 years back. We sent him the samples of the city water and the pyramid water. So what he did, he got these samples frozen at minus 20 degrees Celsius, and then he looked at the electronic microscope and make some photos. The city water, it's very low level of energy, and the molecular structure looks bad. And the pyramid water forms on molecular level hexagonally shaped forms, and the beautiful forms, they look like Christmas trees, like, beautiful crystals. Just by comparing the photos, you can tell that the pyramid water is energetically alive, it vibrates very high, it is a happy water. What the vibration has to do with the water and with our life? A whole lot. As we know, again, our brilliant mind, Nikola Tesla said everything. If you want to find out the nature of the universe, everything is really coming down to energy, vibrations, frequencies. When we are jealous, when we are violent, we vibrate very low. And the opposite, when we have love for the whole world, we vibrate very high. And we are what we drink, what kind of liquids we are getting into our bodies. Also, we are what we eat. Do we eat GMO trash food that's been around the world now, almost everywhere? When I moved from former Yugoslavia 30 years back to US, Houston, Texas, the first thing I noticed was that you cannot smell anything. That's why so many sauces are being used. Everything looks so beautiful. For example, tomato. Every piece is the same size, the same color, the skin is undamaged, beautiful. And then if you close your eyes and you eat tomato, you have no idea what you're eating. And here, back in Europe, you can still sense, you can still, feel, you can still, smell, if it is not GMO food. So we are what we eat. We did another experiment in Bosnia with seeds of beans. So we have one bag which we placed at home. It was control group. In science, you always have to have control groups so you can compare. 1 bag, 1 seed, 1 bean. 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 1 seed, 1 bean And one bag with the seeds we put in the tunnels, and one bag we put on the top of the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. After 14 days of incubation period, we were checking the germinization. So how many seeds will start growing? In the case of the control group, it was about 60%. 60%, it means that not every seed will start grow, when we plant it. And in the case of the seeds from the tunnels and the pyramid, it was 100%. Then we planted those seeds, and the growing season is from the end of May until beginning of September. And just by looking, you could see that the pyramid seeds are growing 2 times quicker, richer, and healthier. So our conclusion was that the pyramid energy do affect the molecular and DNA structure of the food. The next thing, our very good friend, Professor Konstantin Korotkov from University of St. Petersburg, a brilliant scientist. He's got 17 patents, mostly in the field of energy. What he does, he combines the Eastern tradition, India, Tibet, China, with the Western technology. So he has those instruments to measure human bioenergy field or auric field, then the position of our chakras, then the energy in the cells, and stress level, and so on. In the last 5 years, we have scanned, we have measured more than 4,000 people before entering the tunnels under the pyramids and after coming back. Conclusion, more than 90% of subjects had an improvement of all 4 elements. Auric field, chakras coming back to the balance, opening up more so energy can flow better. The energy in the cells, which helps us to fight potential diseases, and the stress level, which would be reduced sometimes very significantly. In medical science, in medicine, when you have 100 subjects and you analyze them, that's scientifically accepted. In our case, we got 4,000. So now we can see that pyramid energy can affect in very beneficial way communication, health, protection and improvement, water, molecular structure improvement, food, DNA improvement, auric field improvement, chakras improvement, stress level, energy in the cells, the atmosphere in general, but also spiritual abilities. There are some very powerful energy spots in those tunnels and on the pyramid. Just by opening your hands, you can feel energy flowing through your hands. Of course, the world in the last few centuries have relied heavily on our 5 physical senses. But we use those physical senses to sense, to experience the physical world. But there is much more than that to our living. There is also the spiritual dimension. How do you experience the spiritual dimension? Using our spiritual abilities and our spiritual senses. What are they? Well, for example, people come to our tunnels. We have some big ceramic blocks, 8 tons, about 18,000 pounds. You open your hands, you can feel the energy flowing through your hands. So you don't see it, you cannot touch it, but you can feel. That's the spiritual sense. You feel the energy. Or every one of us has not only the physical body, but at least 7 energy fields. So really, when we walk, it's not just those couple of feet walking, but it is about 35 feet walking. So we are able to feel our energy fields. The first one is, of course, auric field. So the feeling of those energy sensations is one of the first spiritual senses. But also we can see the colors of our energy fields. It can be red, it's a temperament and sometimes jealousy, aggressiveness, and so on. It can be blue, it can be white, wisdom, and so on. So seeing the colors of the energy field is also spiritual ability. And then we can really communicate without the words with our minds. So telepathy is also our spiritual ability. We can move the objects with the power of our minds or our thoughts. Telekinesis is another one. And of course, the teleportation, very important one, that we can move through space and time. How do you do that? Two requirements. First, you have to know the technique. And the second one, you have to have an energy field strong enough so we can move through those fields. And it seems that the oldest, biggest, and most superior pyramids had the ability to create such energy fields, especially during some special days when our planet was the strongest. What are those days? Spring equinox, summer solstice, fall equinox, and winter solstice. It is not a coincidence that nations and communities all around the world, on all continents, did celebrate those dates as extremely important, the most significant dates in the year. So our conclusion was that indeed the pyramid energy allow us to experience or to improve and to amplify our spiritual abilities. So as we can see, the pyramid energy is one of the solutions to our planet today. It doesn't matter that they exist for thousands or tens of thousands of years. A lot to learn from the ancients. Look at our concept of energy. The last couple of 100 years, we had coal industry and thermal power plant, dirty industry, oil and gas, limited resources. Our planet is hurting because we are extracting the oil and gas. Nuclear power plants, from Chernobyl to Fukushima and back. It's a shame what we do to our planet. Just 3 months back, the Japanese government announced that they are going to release 1 million tons of radioactive water to the Pacific Ocean. The damage will last for hundreds of thousands of years. So, we have all those different forms of energy, limited and very expensive, which allow less than 1% of humanity to own more than 90% of the planetary resources. So, the ancients were creating the pyramids when properly located above energy potent places, when they would use certain criteria, regular geometry, four-sided pyramid, perfect orientation, quartz crystal, underground water flows, underground tunnels, passageways, resonance chambers, location above intersections of volcanic lines. And they were making the energy machines that could last forever and serve humanity, serve the living communities, instead of these fairy tales they are telling us from cultural establishment that the Pharaoh was buried there, and no mummies. Mummies in Egypt, Valley of Kings, 300 kilometers to the south from the Giza Plateau. So now we can see how revolutionary is our work. This is the most open archaeological project ever. In all cases, and I've been investigating pyramids all around the world, probably not a living soul who has seen and investigating more pyramids than myself. From China, Indonesia, and Cambodia, Australia, I mentioned all those countries, Peru, my PhD was about the Mayan pyramids. So I can see that the archaeologists and Egyptologists jealously guard their project. That's why we know nothing about the true purpose of those pyramids. And in our case, we have opened the project for the scientists from different scientific fields, including spiritual scientists. And that's why we've done more in 15 years than Egyptology in the last 200 years. And one of the biggest help that we've had been volunteers. Since the cultural establishment of Bosnia has fiercely attacked me from day one, I had to find a way how to proceed with the excavation. And we opened the projects for people, and young at their heart, to come, to join us, to dig, to discover, and to promote. In the last 11 years only, we have had 3,550 volunteers from 63 countries who come to our part of the world, June, July, August, September, October. They join us, we work together. Never such enthusiasm in the world of archaeology and maybe in the world of science in general. So, my invitation, especially to those who don't want to travel, take PCR test, take vaccine and so on, to wait and come when the borders are open, when the world is back to normality, to join us in Bosnia for the unique experience. In the last 5 years, I've been spending all my savings from Houston, where I ran the business over there, and I purchased a lot of swampy land with a lot of trash. We cleared everything, and we made a beautiful park with the installations like a labyrinth of energy, labyrinth of love, labyrinth of purification. And we have, megalithic circles, we have water fountains, we have botanical gardens, and the park entrance is for free, and people come, they enjoy a lot of cultural events, concerts, book promotions, yoga sessions, meditation. So we've been creating a different world, unique world. And at our place, about 40 businesses, we rent our space to them, healthy food, freshly squeezed juices, and so on. So it's a different concept of living, a healthy living. Not technological man, but the natural man. When we think about the future, if we are to wait for the governments to solve our problems, then the control and manipulation will continue. But if we change ourselves, we are going to change the world. Thank you very much. And we got a few minutes if somebody wants to ask anything.
Thank you so much, brother. It's so amazing, all the things that are coming out of your research worldwide, definitely, but in regard to the Bosnian Pyramid complex, like, if we were able to cultivate this wisdom and concentrate on it collectively all over the world, who knows what we could do and what we could address. Just from example, the 9 things that you included in the reason why there's the healing going on. So it's really exciting because it's right there in front of us, really. It just takes all of us deciding that we're going to adopt it and integrate it into society, right?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely. And so there is a little bit of controversy and confusion around what makes a pyramid. Is it shape alone, or is it something about the fire, a structure that would cause there to be a fire in the middle? Like, how would you define a pyramid, even though they have different shape?
I think you just answered the question. Now, the major thing is, of course, the shape. You have to have the shape of the pyramid to call the artificial structure a pyramid. And like you said, fire in the middle, coming from the ancient Greeks. So they knew that it had something to do with the energy. And now we have scientifically proven that. When our good friend, also late, Dr. Harry Oldfield from UK visited us back in 2007, he brought his special camera. At the time he called it PIP camera. And it can film bioenergy fields that are not visible to the naked human eye. And then he was filming the area around the pyramids. If it is natural, the rivers and the natural hills and the cities, those energy fields, they are always horizontal and fixed. But when you come to the pyramid, you can see that the energy field is now vertical. Why? Because in the middle of the pyramid, we could see the energy accumulating and getting through the top. And then this energy field hitting those horizontal fields, they become vertical. So yes, it is fire in the middle, and yes, it is the pyramid shape, and yes, it has to be an artificial structure. And if you add more elements, I mentioned, for example, the orientation. Everybody knows that Egyptian pyramids had perfect orientation to the north. The Great Pyramid of Egypt, error 0 degrees, 3 minutes. Khafre, 0 degrees, 3 minutes. Mycerinos, 0 degrees, 18 minutes. Bent Pyramid, 0 degrees, 12 minutes. Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, 0 degrees, 0 minutes and 12 seconds. It's most precise. But why is that important? Even not only, established, archaeologists, Egyptologists who work in the institutes and the universities, they know about the orientation. They don't know why. Independent researchers, Hancock, all these, Shock, all these, they also say, oh, it's amazing, look at the orientation. But the question is why? They don't know because they don't have an engineering minds. They are not so much in the energies. Back to Nikola Tesla. He was not the first one or the last one, but he basically said everything is energy. Our planet is a huge ball of energy, and you have movement of the energy. The strongest flow are north-south and east-west. You build four-sided pyramid. You perfectly oriented. It initiates the movement of the energy inside the pyramid. So it has always been about the energy. So when I said, besides the artificial structure and the shape, you have to have perfect orientation, you have to have quartz crystal to transform different forms of the energy. The tunnels, they also amplifies the energy. The water, kinetic energy. So it is always, so more elements, the pyramid becomes more powerful. So it is science, it is knowledge, it is the truth.
Beautiful, thank you.
So we have a few more questions here. This one's from Barbara. Do you believe that there are artificially built pyramids on Mars, or that they're purely natural structures?
When you look at the photos from the Viking from almost 50 years, you would say, yes, it was a four-sided pyramid. When you look at the photos from like 30 years later, then you would say, no, actually it was not. But I would really believe to those photos from 1970s, the face also, the delphin, the five-sided pyramid. We have so many proofs that the atmosphere was around that planet. And most probably during, now, was it wars? Was it something of a natural catastrophe? Something happened to that atmosphere. If you had atmosphere, if you had water, if you had forms of life, Obviously, you had probably the civilization, and there is a great possibility that it was much older than ours and more developed. So if you had civilization, then of course, you would have some structures over there. So I think that the probability is very, very high.
Definitely. All right, two more questions here. Campbell is asking, is the scalar energy beam emanating from the peak of the pyramid found to be shaped like a DNA spiral?
Yes, it is, and that's very interesting. So really, it should go like this and like this. So now we have using our basically 2D pictures, but probably if we combine with more sophisticated equipment, if we get 3D, then yes, that's exactly how it would look like.
All right, and there's a question about volunteers. Is the Bosnian Pyramid open to volunteers this July to October, or only after travel restrictions are lifted?
Well, it is open. The matter of fact, we are starting with our first shift tomorrow, Monday. Monday is what, the 7th? And yeah, so we have, it's just maybe 3-4 volunteers. It's not between 30 and 50 like the previous years, but we're going to keep this tradition. So this year we might have 30-40 volunteers, which is fine. So I'm expecting more people next year. So if they want to apply, bosnianpyramids.org.
Okay, cool.
bosnianpyramids.org.
Bosnian Pyramids. And I'll put that link in the replay for this too. So all
Good.
100 people that sign up, they have the option to do that.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Sam, before I let you go, I want to mention that you had said about the Japanese water being released, right? And it could affect us for many, many years. So from what you're saying and the way the water is purified in the Bosnian Pyramid, maybe we can utilize this technology to purify the world's waters. Right?
Maybe we can, and the matter of fact, it can be applied almost anywhere because the pyramid energy improves the molecular structure. 1951, you probably know about that case. The guy in former Czechoslovakia patented the replica of Great Pyramid of Egypt, 52 degrees, 4 sides, perfect orientation. He put that razor, for shaving, and used razor in 24 hours, it would become like new because of the pyramid energy.
Huh.
The same thing happens in our pyramids, in our tunnels. The only thing that I think it cannot affect is this, mRNA vaccine, because that's genetic information. It is not something that you can fix on physical level. It is the information. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I've seen some post-COVID patients. In our case, people would have problem breathing and so on. After visiting, they would breathe much, much better. And even in this aspect of the mind, people like they would feel so bad, lazy. They are not willing to do anything. But after visiting the pyramids, they would feel much better. So now we can see, that this regeneration process also covers the mental activity.
Beautiful. I think within the next 5 years, you're definitely going to see my wife and myself in Bosnia. Thank you so much, Dr. San. Thank you for everything you're doing, brother. Such an inspiration. So amazing the way you present everything. Really appreciate you for being here.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Sam.
Bye-bye, Chira.
Bye.